Who's ready to win the day in sports? I know you are. Welcome to Fantasy Sports Daily, powered by FantasyGuru.com, Monday through Friday, noon to 1 p.m. Eastern. I'm Justin Fensterman, and let's break everything down from a fantasy sports perspective. What is going on, everybody? My name is Justin Fensterman. Yes, still filling in for Ray Flowers, who's off this week. Welcome to Fantasy Sports Daily here on the Elite Plus Network, powered by FantasyGuru.com, where we're helping you win, getting you ready for the fantasy football season. And that, by the way, where you could find our ongoing draft guide that you could keep with you for the season. Got a lot of content going up out there. I just actually, over the last few days, put out some auction content along with Ray Flowers, so it's fresh right there. I know a few of you are asking about it, so it's up there right now and more to come when it comes to fantasy football auctions. I'm loving the response that I've been getting to the auction content, whether it's on this show or in the writing. I'm telling you guys, if you haven't played in a fantasy football auction, and that'll be part of what I cover today too, but if you haven't played in an auction just yet, you should give it a try for 1 year. Yeah, it's a little bit more time consuming. I explain that, but I also explain different ways in which that you could cut down on said time. What is going on, Angelo? Great to see you. Great to see you, Hal, as well. Let's get ready to win. Kind of what I'm doing when I'm filling in for Ray here, I'm dividing each day up to a different position just to talk about where I'm seeing certain players go in relations to other fantasy football draft boards out there. I'm not saying that's where you have to draft said player. I'm just telling you the range that they're going, and especially thinking about it from an auction standpoint, going to kind of combine the snake and auction strategy when talking about the tight end position today. If you want to check out past episodes, yesterday I did running backs. Tyler Beaker joined me, did a great job as he always does talking about the position. Armando Marsal going to stop by in a little bit to talk about tight ends. You can catch Armando Marsal's tight end article as part of our draft guide at fantasyguru.com. For those, by the way, because you know that this is a free stream, so make sure you tell your friends if you also are a part of the Elite Mafia. But just to make sure, I keep mentioning this draft guide right here. This is where you can get it to sign up for any of our packages that we have at fantasyguru.com. This stream right here, free for all, Monday through Friday, noon Eastern. So there's the link if you want to sign up for any of our packages. We have betting solo package. We have a DFS solo package. We have a season-long fantasy football solo package. Or you just bundle them all together, and then you get access to everything. You get access to our Discord, which we have the largest active Discord community in fantasy sports. You get that. You get all of our live streams on the site. The roster coach happening tonight, 7 p.m. Eastern. How do you get a part of that? You have this show, but you don't have the roster coach stream that is operated by Armando Marsal, Tyler Beaker, Russell Clay, Rich Mileto, all which who you see on this very show every single Tuesday. But you got to be part of the Elite Mafia to catch that stream, to get ready for your drafts. It is time. And we also have a variety of new Discord channels so we can get to your issues specifically. Also, when it comes to setting up leagues, I know I've been talking a lot about that. Anyone that has any questions regarding league setup, commissioner BS, you can always tweet me at Fensty Sports, FENSTY Sports on X. You can also Instagram me with the same handle. And also you can find me at Fensty, FENSTY, right there in our Discord at fantasyguru.com. Let's talk about a little bit with auctions, because I know some of you are, of course, bringing it up and everything. How do I feel about trades in startups? Ooh, very interesting. Trades in startups. I am like this with trades, okay? I don't love making trades. If I'm making a trade personally, it's because I am in a very desperate situation. I'm probably about to get ripped off in a deal. It doesn't have to be that way, but that's the way it goes. I'm all right with trades. I could see why commissioners don't want trades. I don't think it needs to be necessarily required. I don't. So if you have a bunch of league mates, an overwhelming majority that they don't want trades part of fantasy football, don't make trades part of fantasy football. You don't have to, because I'll say this, and I hate to talk about this, but collusion, it does happen in fantasy football. And if you're one of those people, why ruin it for everybody else in your league? Don't do anything like that, especially in leagues where there's no blocking trades, because as I've learned, there are plenty of you that play in leagues where trades just go through whenever they're made. And to me, that's a little bit problematic. That's where I take a stand. So if you are going to include trades, my opinion is don't do a trade voting system. And if you do, make sure your league is set up so the majority ends up winning. Because if you don't change those default settings on some of your favorite fantasy sites that you play on, then all you'll need is 3 votes or even 4 votes in a 12-team league in order to veto a trade. And that's not even half right there. That's not even the majority. That's not even close, in my opinion. So am I about trades? I don't think that they necessarily need to be required. Like, would I not join a league because there are no trading? A lot of the high-stakes leagues don't have trading. High-stakes leagues don't for that very reason. So I don't think it needs to be required. I don't. But if you are going to include trades and how to set it up, there are multiple ways you could do it. Number one, you don't have any blocking. You trust your league mates and the integrity of the league. It will be upheld, and you don't have any kind of blocking or policing or anything like that. The voting system I talked about where different league members vote, but even then, they can just vote down a trade just because. And if you don't have it written in the fine print in your fantasy football league rules that when it comes to trading, if you're voting down the trade just to vote trade, the majority wins, and then the commissioner can override that, you don't have that, and most people won't, then you're at the mercy of your other league mates. You're in, let's say, second or third place, and it's a dogfight for the final couple of playoff spots, and you're at the trade deadline, and they make that trade that you know when you see the team, you go, damn, they just got the piece that they needed. Well, you could just vote down that trade just because, even if it's a fair trade. I think it's wrong, and it happens more often than you think. And if you're not changing that default, all it takes is 4, and what could be a very fair trade is now off the table because people are selfish and they want to win so badly that their way of preventing others to win. And look, I hate to say this and I hate to be this person, but if it's not addressed in the rules, then that's on the commissioner. So that's why in my home leagues, and I run a football league, I run a basketball league, the commissioner decides. And now, look, you could be thinking, well, what if your commissioner can't be trusted? You shouldn't be playing in their fantasy football league. There are plenty of leagues, plenty of games, plenty of people that you could join up and even start your own league with. If you cannot trust your commissioner to the point where you think that they, who are holding, by the way, for those that are playing with any kind of monetary prize, holding the money, also the treasurer. So if you can trust them with the money, you should expect to trust the commissioner, whoever it is, to be able to operate the league fairly. But if that's not the case, I don't care if it's your best friend, get out of the league. Absolutely get out of the league. I've heard some of the most ridiculous things before by friends of mine who were in good friends leagues of their own. They didn't get paid out. Not everyone gave the entry fee. I don't want to say it's business, not personal, but at the same time, you could still be friends with someone and not like how they run their fantasy football league. So that's always been my opinion on trades. I don't think they're necessarily required. I know people love to make them. I'd be careful because you're messing with the foundation of your team. But for me personally, as a commissioner operates whether or not trades go through. And if you can't trust a commissioner, if they're vetoing a trade because it impacts their team, get out of the league. You don't need to play with them. We need to eliminate those commissioners from playing in fantasy football right here. So asking me, when will I make the roster, coach? Well, you never know, Hal. You never, ever know. But I'll tell you this much here. It's always great. I'll say this, even though I'm not on it specifically, I'm always lurking in the shadows because I love listening. Something my dad always said to me, you'll learn more from listening. And I love just hearing the combination because I talk to these guys so regularly about fantasy football. I love hearing what Armando and Tyler and Russell have to say together. Rich Mileto. I mean, they all have different strategies. We all have different strategies, but we all want the same thing. You all to win out there. And that's the damn truth. So make sure if you're not part of the Elite Mafia, this link right here, make sure you go to said link and you sign up for any of our packages right there. So that's very exciting. I'm pumped up for it. Like I said, have put out some of the content there. Going to be putting out more throughout the season too when it comes to fantasy football. So let's talk about what is on the agenda, because Armando Marsal is going to join me in just a little bit. The trade conversation. I get caught up in that sometimes, guys. I do, because there's so many people out there that want to ruin it for everybody. And I don't want to say it's the overwhelming majority of players, but I've heard so many stories of just stupid league commissioner BS. I've heard all of these stories before about collusion. I've seen it. I've experienced it as a commissioner and had to deal with it. I've experienced it as a league mate and had to call it out. It's not fun, but we want fantasy football to be fair. And that's how we make it fair, in my opinion, with the trades. I've talked to Rich Mileto from fantasyguru.com. He's told me that he thinks all trades should just go through. That's his opinion on it. And I can have a different opinion on it, and I do, that you should be able to trust the commissioner. I trust the commissioner more than I trust the league mates, because in a very tight battle, when that trade deadline's hitting, whenever it is, week 10 or so, and you're sitting there with only a few weeks to go, and you're fighting with 4 other teams for 2 spots, and one of those teams makes that trade that you wish you made, the selfishness and the greed try to take over sometimes, especially when you're voting on trades, and especially when your commissioner isn't dotting their I's and crossing their T's, and they're not changing that default to the number of votes. Because to me, I honestly think if a trade is that bad when it comes to vetoing a trade, something like that, I feel like you should have the overwhelming majority. If not, it should be unanimous. But a lot of people want majority rules. So in a 12-team league, you're looking at a 7-5 split that you're looking for, not 3 votes or 4 votes to eliminate and veto that trade. That's wrong. It's wrong. And I don't blame these sites. I don't. They're free. They don't need to make these changes. Just like I told you all yesterday, default rankings. I've done this before. I did it. I'm not bragging or anything like that. It was just one of the many jobs I've had in this industry. Fensty, write me up some basketball default rankings for said site. Oh, but it's June 15th and the NBA draft hasn't happened yet. Okay, we'll still do it anyway. And then, okay, you want an update? No. So those default rankings and those default settings, all that, it gets done months in advance. So that's why getting to your draft and auction early and setting up your queue is huge, especially for you snake draft players out there, because you never know. And it happens a lot more in hoops and other sports than football. But still, in football, you'll find some gems that are ranked way down the list that because people aren't going through the queue and they're just looking at the, 15, 20 players they see and their display on their screen, and that's it. You can find some gems and you can take advantage of some value. Seen it too many times. ESPN especially. ESPN is definitely one of those leagues. I'm in a league with a bunch of my family members, and every year there's the same couple of people that's like, wow, I didn't even see him. Yeah, he was way down the rankings. You're just not used to it because you're hearing about the player a lot. Seeing is believing. You didn't see the player. That's why you got to mess with your queue in drafts. So you're getting a little bit of everything. You're getting a little league setup strategy, getting a little snake draft strategy. Now let's talk about how I've handled the tight end position, because I used to be that guy. And I know that there are a lot of you out there that don't want to put stock and draft stock in the tight end spot. Well, I'm telling all of you right now that there are going to be some tight ends. And I want to say, if you're willing to go after, the Dallas Goederts and Zach Ertzes of the world, if you want to spend in your auction $0 or $1 and that's it, just to get $1 just to get your starting tight end, save some money, you could do that. But you're going to be streaming every week. And you could still win by streaming every week. And hopefully you find someone that has a connection with their quarterback that was very unexpected. And boom, you're off just like that. Or you could go the opposite direction. You could go with an elite tight end. I mean, we had multiple tight ends that had over 100 targets last year, as you see on this screen. 100 targets. And Travis Kelce, by the way, was one of them. You know why people aren't liking Travis Kelce right now? You know why his draft stock is what it is? Which, by the way, it's improved a little bit, but you're still looking at 7th, 8th round value. I will take that every freaking time. Every freaking time. 3 touchdowns, I don't care. I don't care. Because if I'm not chasing a high draft capital tight end, I'm not chasing a Brock Bowers, let's say. I'm not chasing a McBride. I'm not chasing a Kittle, let's just say. Well, you know what I'll do? I'll save some draft capital and I'll go after a very trusting target of Patrick Mahomes in a very prolific Chiefs offense that benefits the tight end. If you look at total fantasy points, it's deceiving. It is. Look at the targets. $133, yes, please. I know he's old. I know he is. But let's see him not get heavy target volume. Let's see that happen. Because when that happens, that's when, okay, now we have something here. He's probably at the end. Yeah, we all know, was he debating retiring or not? But the fact of the matter is, if I don't have to spend a 2nd round pick, because let's not forget, both Brock Bowers and, Trey McBride, they were up there too. They didn't have that many more targets than Travis Kelce. Why not save the 5 to 6 rounds of draft capital to go after a Travis Kelce? That's what I'm chasing. That's what I'm looking at. I'm looking at the fact that he still had 97 receptions. Did he have over 1,000 yards? No. Who cares? Okay, who cares? At the end of the day, if this guy, and I know, by the way, that there were definitely weeks where you were frustrated. I was too. I had him. I kept him. But at the end of the day, if he's going to be getting those targets, he didn't get them in the end zone last year. He didn't get in the end zone more than 3 times. I understand that. But to me, I feel like that is unfortunately the focus of everybody out there. I'm focused on the volume. Similar volume to Trey McBride. You have to spend way up for Trey McBride. No, the other Chiefs options that they have, they don't scare me off of a Travis Kelce. They don't. And so I'm going to take advantage of that. And right now, being at the end of July, then I'm fine with it. And he's probably going to end up moving up. If I think that some people more people start putting 2 and 2 together with Travis Kelce and realize the lack of touchdowns really hurt him, but not from lack of targets. It's not. Hal asking me on the stream, Hal, it's been great riding with you on the stream. If you take Travis Kelce, am I drafting a 2nd tight end? Most likely not. Normal 16-round leagues, starting 1 tight end with 1 flex. I'm not doing that. I'm not drafting. If I'm waiting on beyond someone like a Travis Kelce, if I'm going beyond your top 12 or your arguable top 12 guys, then maybe I'm open to it. I generally don't do it, especially if I'm spending up. I get, though, Hal, why you asked that question, because here you're not spending up. And we don't know if we're going to get those touchdowns. We think we are. I think we are. More than 3. Are we going to get to double figures? Probably not. But can I see him getting 6 to 8 touchdowns? Yes. Can I see him get similar target volume? Yes. I'm not thinking, he's just going to break apart week 1 and that's it. And it's not a lot of draft capital to pay for someone who gets as heavy volume as him. So how to answer your question, I'm not actively targeting like, okay, I got Kelce, now let's double down and find someone else. No, but if there is someone who's going a bit later and I really I'm not seeing any running backs that can help me, not even a handcuff, I'm right at the end of my draft, then maybe I'll go after another one. But by that point, I'm going best player available towards the end. So that's why with Travis Kelce, you're still paying some draft capital there, but not nearly as much as you are for some of these other guys. That's a big time difference. And I'm not against going after Bowers and McBride, especially Trey McBride. And I'm starting to wonder here because I'm slowly seeing, obviously because of all we're seeing with San Francisco and the health of some of their pass catchers here, Brandon Ayuk, not good. Ricky Pearsall, I mean, he's a bit banged up. I mean, you've got a few guys that are banged up here, especially with Ayuk being banged up. George Kittle really starting to get more attention, really starting to move up. I was actually looking at some draft boards and some auction boards. I'm seeing him flirt with that $25 area for auctions, which is huge. I mean, you're talking about some of the top tight ends going in that 29 to probably 31 area. Kittle's starting to gain more interest there. He absolutely is. I'm starting to wonder because right now, when looking at recent draft boards, you're seeing, for the most part, Bowers and McBride get drafted. And by the way, this is in 12-team leagues. And thinking, and you all should know this, and I probably should have explained this yesterday, but how I kind of view things, how I kind of judge things, because I know that there's still a few of you out there that play in standard leagues. There's a lot more of you I know that play in PPR. So I go with a kind of happy medium of half PPR when I'm thinking about all this. When I'm looking at boards, when I'm looking at stats from last year, I'm trying to do it so it can appeal somewhat to everyone. So I do half PPR because of that. So at the end of the day, when it comes to the tight end position, I mean, I'm all right with George Kittle, but he's starting to move up and up and up and up and up. And it'll be interesting to see how the targets are divided when Ayuk is ready to go, but we don't know when that's going to be. So that makes me, seeing that makes me a little bit more interested if I am going to look for any kind of consistency up top, because we have an article written, I believe, by Tyler Beaker on if you go with an elite tight end strategy. What Tyler does in the article is he not only explains what it would mean and when a great format is to go with maybe an elite tight end, which is fewer teams, so you're looking at 10 to 12 teams. But if you're going elite tight end, one of the things, as Tyler shows you some fast drafts where he's from, of course, Drafters and everything was our partner for Best Ball and all, Tyler shows us where it's kind of a little bit of a sacrifice. You're going to be missing out maybe on that first or second tier of running backs. Wide receivers, you might not get a top guy if you're paying second round price for Brock Bowers. But at the same time, Brock Bowers, very young. Brock Bowers is going to be heavily utilized once again. Can we see him getting 100-plus targets? Yes. Yes, we can again. Trey McBride, too, in this system. Once again, same coaching system. We saw it a couple of years ago. So that's where I'm very confident, and that's where I like seeing the consistency, especially when we're talking about 100-plus targets in a position where you're not seeing too much of that. Because let's not forget that in 2023, and this guy, by the way, has been able to stay healthy, but he's gotten over 100 targets now in each of his last 2 years, McBride. And here's the thing, too, with McBride. I mean, with the receptions, he's not getting in the end zone a lot either. So let's talk about that for a second. Because if you really think about it, the difference is between Trey McBride and Travis Kelce, 14 targets. Kelce had more touchdowns than McBride last year. And the only thing different was, a few more receptions, about 13, 14 more receptions, and about 400 yards. That's the difference there. Not that much. I'm not saying that Travis Kelce is going to put together this identical season to Trey McBride, but I'm just explaining you the difference because you're looking at about a 5-round in a 12-team league, a 5-round difference in draft capital there. I know he's getting old, and I know at some point that will definitely show even more. It will. It happens to everyone, happens to all athletes, but he has such a connection, and we saw him get utilized so heavily. It's kind of like the same things that people were saying over and over again regarding Derrick Henry. He can't handle the workload, can't handle the workload, can't handle the workload. And then in Tennessee, did it again and again and again and again. And he got injured one year and everyone's, I told you so. But then goes to Baltimore, has some protection there last year, and he was doing everything. And that's with Lamar Jackson, who also runs. And he can still handle that workload, Derrick Henry. So I'm not going to start predicting that this is going to be a major drop-off because I'm not going to play like that. It's one thing if he's getting older and older and he's having a major, major injury every single year, then okay, I'm like, maybe he's a little too old. But for now, you're looking at 133 targets. Let's say he gets about 30 less than that. He could still, because he is a borderline top 5 guy from last year, he could still put up a lot of fantasy production, being that he's drafted in the 7th round. I like that. How does that equate in auction value? I'll tell you. To me, Travis Kelce, I mean, you're not spending $30 on him. That's if you want Brock Bowers, that's what you're going to have to do. And let me tell you this right now, and I'm going to do kind of an advanced. I did the intro to auctions last week, which you absolutely 1000%. I want to say it's Fantasy Sports Daily episode 449, I want to say. Intro to Fantasy Football Auctions. I explain about why auctions are great. This Thursday, I'm going to give the more advanced kind of auction strategy session right there on players you bring up, because you're bringing up a tight end, or rather you're in a league with me. You're in an auction with me. I'm telling you right now, I'm putting Brock Bowers up first. I want to see how much he goes for. And then the next time around, if let's say I'm like, okay, Travis Kelce's my guy, maybe Mark Andrews, another guy who's getting older, not coming off an injury, coming off, yes, a devastating end to the Ravens campaign, dropping that pass, but at the same time, not coming off an injury like he was the year before. Let's say I want to go with one of those two. Okay, in my auctions, you're thinking, oh, I'm going to spend $12 and get Brock Bowers. No, you're not. I'm putting him up first, and everyone's going to want to spend on him. And you're going to be spending, if you have a $200 auction budget, you're going to be spending about $30 on him, maybe even $31, $32 if there are eager beavers out there. Trey McBride, you're probably spending in the late 20s, I'd say. Probably in that 27 to 28 area. That's what you're spending on with Trey McBride. With Kelce, and here's the difference here, my guess, and it depends on how much more excitement surrounds him by the time our auctions happen in about a month from now, a lot of people drafting close to the start of the season, he's going to probably end up, I'm wondering if he ends up going for 10 to 12. Think there's a chance in certain auctions he could go for up to 15, but for $12 for him, totally fine with that. But you see in those types of leagues, and I explain it at fantasyguru.com, that there are major drop-offs, and Ray Flowers talks about that too. So, yeah, to me, again, Travis Kelce, Mark Andrews, I'm fine with these guys. Other guys, and you could see some of the other target leaders from last year, like Jonnu Smith, let's just say, Jonnu Smith, who had over 100 targets. He had 111 targets. I'm scared off, man. And I'm seeing that, by the way, a lot of you are as well. Because, again, these were from last year. Different situation. Not going to put as much emphasis on the tight end in Pittsburgh. I'm wondering how much he's going to be dropping off because of that. Now, can he still be utilized? Absolutely, he can still be utilized. But is he going to be utilized as much as he was in Miami? I don't think so. So that's where we have to be careful when it comes to new situations from last year. Even someone who I drafted in our Fantasy Guru mock, and I'm very interested in what Armando Marsal will have to say about this guy, but David Njoku, because for me, I am not too sure who at the end of the season or by the end of the season, when we're getting ready for our fantasy football playoffs, who's going to be throwing in the ball. Like it to be Flacco, but you never know at the end of the day where the Browns are record-wise. They want to try to talk about it, and they want to try to utilize their youths a little bit, then we'll have to see. But for me, if I'm thinking David Njoku, I'm praying that at least for the majority of the season, I get Flacco throwing him the ball, which I would like very, very much. So a little tight end talk along with league setup talk. It's been great. And I will continue, by the way, talking league setup with all of you and taking your questions and comments. But joining me right now to the main stage, joins us every Tuesday here on Fantasy Sports Daily, it's Armando Marsal. What's going on, Armando? How you doing?
I'm doing good, Festy. How about yourself?
I'm doing good, man. I'm trying to figure out, when it comes to Travis Kelce, how much his draft stock is going to improve, because when you look at total points, and I was saying this before, Armando, it's very deceiving because he didn't get in the end zone a lot, but he still got targeted a ton, still had a lot of receptions for the year. It's hard for me to think that he's going to be a borderline 8th round pick in the majority of leagues by the time we hit a month from now.
I don't think his stock is going to go up all that much. I actually love the idea of buying him at his current price. I mean, you mentioned it, right? He was top 3 in targets, top 3 in receptions, top 5 in receiving yards among tight ends last year. He didn't get, in the end zone. as much as we're used to see, maybe, but that's okay. He was still a top 5 tight end in PPR scoring. When you look at PPR points per game, he was top 7. The production was there. May he come with a little bit more volatility? Sure. Maybe may he come with a little bit lower of a floor than he did in his prime? Sure. But he still, in my opinion, a reliable every week starter in redrafts, in best ball, and really any format. I think he is. I think and you're getting him at a great price. I'm looking at right now his underdog ADP is round 9. He's coming off the board tight end 6. But in round 9, I'm okay with taking a discount, on Kelce when you're getting him so many rounds later than you're accustomed to. So I think he's going to be just fine. I don't see his stock moving all that much. Maybe if he moves up to round 8, round 7.
And that's where I'm seeing him, by the way, Armando, in redraft. I'm seeing him move up to the end of the 7th round at this point. And he's kind of toggling between 7th and 8th. So I don't see him going 6th, 7th. I see him being in that 7th, 8th round, but there's definitely going to be a lot more interest. And for me, just seeing the amount of usage this guy has had, the utilization, I don't care about his age. If I have to deal with, let's say he gets hurt or something a few weeks into the season, it's not spending that much draft capital on a guy who could once again exceed 100 targets.
Yeah, I agree. I don't think his price is going to get to the point where I'm uncomfortable taking him. I don't see it inflating that much. If he does go to even if he goes to like mid round 7, at that point you're pretty much set in your draft, right? Where you at least have 3 receivers, I would assume, maybe 2 running backs, potentially your quarterback already. You're going into round 7, getting Kelce. I think you're going to have a very strong foundation there with your starting lineup, from a fantasy perspective. So I like the idea of Kelce. I've been taking him a ton in best ball. If we're being he right now might be my highest owned tight end. I'm not sure. I don't have the ownership in front of me, but he's definitely in the mix of my highest owned tight ends at this moment.
Now, Angelo asking in the chat, and I wanted to ask you about this guy here, because is the offense set up to benefit Evan Engram? There's a lot to love about Denver, man. There's a lot. Best offensive line, which, by the way, you and Ted Schuster tagged him the offensive line coverage at fantasyguru.com. I saw that raving 80,000 star review that you gave the Denver Broncos there, with Bo Nix having the best protection you could buy at this point. And with that, I mean, thinking, Sutton just got $92 million extension, which is interesting. Now I'm watching to see what the Commanders do with Terry McLaurin coming off of that. But Evan Engram, I feel like, Armando, a big thing with Evan Engram, and a lot of people are talking about and trying to make some kind of connection with how Sean Payton used to use Jimmy Graham. His draft capital is pretty much nothing. His auction capital that I put up on the site is single digits, maybe $5, and that's it, which is cheap as hell. What are your expectations for Evan Engram?
I absolutely love Evan Engram this year. He's one of my favorite tight ends when you're taking everything into account, right? You're talking about situation, you're talking about price tag. I actually pulled up the numbers while you were talking because I did want to be accurate. So Travis Kelce is my second highest owned tight end. Evan Engram is my highest owned tight end right now. Like, I absolutely love it. You mentioned it. He's going into a great situation. A young quarterback, they tend to gravitate to the tight end position. At times this is a good system. We know how Peyton has had a lot of success, with tight ends throughout his career there. So you look at this supporting cast here. You got Courtland Sutton, who, yes, wide receiver 1 for them, and they're going to be probably their top targeted player. But right behind him, I think it's Evan Engram. I think he's going to be the second guy in that passing option in the passing game. So I absolutely love him. He's someone that has been, if you look at the numbers, Fancy, he's been very good. Yes, there's been volatility. Yes, he's dealt with injuries. But when you're looking at things from a PPR per game standpoint, going back to 2017, right, he's been top 7 in all but 2 seasons, in a PPR points per game fashion. So he's someone that, when healthy, he can produce at a high end level. Yes, he suffered injuries last year, only played 9 games. So that obviously is always a concern, especially with another year older tight end. So for me, I don't think he's expensive at all. If you're not taking, some of the top tier guys, I love the idea of kind of waiting around in this range of the Kelce, the Engram ranges. And if you miss on Kelce, you could still get Engram a couple rounds later. So I think you're getting a very good quality tight end, one that, so long as he's healthy, is going to give you a pretty stable floor with pretty nice upside as well. So I'm big on Engram this year.
What about other guys in that range, Armando? And thinking about guys like Mark Andrews, who we saw get the end zone a zillion times. And then even a David Njoku, who we know he has the skills and he can go short and catch a lot of passes. It's just, and maybe we're just thinking, and I'm just thinking too much into it, too deep into the weeds here. But I would love it if I knew that Flacco was going to be starting in Cleveland the entire season, let's just say, then I'd have a lot more trust, but it's just not a lot of capital. What are your thoughts on both Mark Andrews and David Njoku?
So I had this conversation with Rich Mileto on the Scoring Dependency podcast, which was posted today. And Mark Andrews, what really concerns me about him, he's coming off a career high 11 receiving touchdown season. You look at the numbers, you look at, where the production came from. I have the chart right here. 35% of his fantasy production came from touchdowns. I think there's going to be some regression in that department. Therefore, I do think that, he's going to take a step back. I still think he's going to have a role, but I do think likely will be very much involved as well. My concern with Andrews is if there's regression in the touchdown department and, kind of seeing the volume go down, you're going to see that production, the fantasy production start going down as well. I still think he's going to be someone you can have in your lineups. I prefer him in best balls, but I do think there is going to be some week-to-week volatility when he's not scoring touchdowns. So for me, I have a little bit of concern for him. I'm okay with drafting him, but I do want to, if you do draft him, I want you to keep in mind, like, there could be some volatility. There could be some regression here. And as far as David Njoku, man, my biggest concern is who's going to be throwing him the football, right? I don't think the Browns can afford to start Flacco all season. I agree with you. That would be ideal for me. That would make my decisions easier with this lineup, right? Like, I would now start investing in Judy. I will now start investing in Tillman. I would now start investing in these players that I'm staying away from because I just don't know what's going to happen. I don't trust either of the two rookies, right? I just really don't trust them. So I think there's going to be a lot of volatility with this offense in general. You look at this offensive line, it's a work in progress too. Like, I think there's a lot of red flags with Cleveland. So David Njoku is one of those tight ends that I've kind of been avoiding and not drafting much. I think in best ball, you could take some shots because he's talented. He's going to get red zone opportunities. He's going to, make some big plays, and there's going to be some big weeks, but I think those are going to be tougher. Once they make the change. It's not with Flacco. With Flacco in the center, I think you're going to get consistent production. I just don't think that the Browns can keep Flacco there for more than 5-6 weeks. I don't think that they can do that. So, right? Do you think they can? I don't think
that's the problem. If you're telling me he's going to be there for 8 to 10 weeks, I could buy into it and then be like, all right, I'm going to be ready to stream. And by the way, I forget if it was Hal or Angelo that was asking me before about drafting a second tight end. Maybe with thinking this and having this conversation with Armando, that if we are going to draft David Njoku, maybe in the next couple of rounds, we do look to hedge a little bit. I don't necessarily, Armando, like to do that in leagues that are one tight end with no tight end premium, one tight end, one flex, your opportunities to start a tight end there. But I don't really draft more than one tight end in those situations. But maybe with Njoku, if we're really thinking that it could be 5 or 6 weeks, maybe we do look for somebody else to hedge a little bit.
Yeah, I'm so anti-drafting the second tight end.
Me too, man.
In leagues where it's not tight end premium, like you mentioned, not tight end premium, and obviously not best ball situations. Because in best ball, I do draft multiple tight ends for obvious reasons. But in redraft formats where it's just one tight end league, I cannot do it because you're going to be faced with a situation, right, where that second tight end on your bench is going to have a good week one. David Njoku doesn't have a good week one. Now you're going to be questioning your decision-making in week 2 already and whether you should start that tight end that did well last week and Njoku not do well. And I feel you can find yourself in that. Plus, in addition to that scenario, you also are losing so much opportunity cost with other more valuable positions. It's tougher to replace the running backs and the receivers off of waivers throughout the season, where it's easier just to pick up a replacement off of waivers at tight end. It's such a volatile position once you get to a certain period, where I prefer holding that handcuff, that using that bench spot on running backs or receivers and just having depth at those positions. I think there's just so much more value to do that than to have a backup tight end that's going to give you a volatile weekly floor.
Angelo bringing up an interesting tight end, maybe someone a little bit controversial. We're waiting and waiting and waiting. Kyle Pitts, though, can he and Penix have that connection that activates him to the point of making him relevant again in our fantasy world?
I'm probably gonna leave it for best ball at most. I can't do it anymore, Fenster. I've been bit by this one too many times. Look, I understand. For anyone that does it, I'm not going to talk you over that. I just can't. I think you kind of seeing what you're getting. They have Bijan, they have Drake London. Like they have so many mouths to feed here in this offense. I don't see it happening this year. I will have some exposure in best ball simply because, if you look at his ADP right now, coming off around like 13, 14, 12, like tight end 17. He could be someone's second or third tight end, and depending on your build, if you want to go with a Falcon stack, he's a cheap way to get exposure there. So I will have some pits in best ball, but I probably won't have much at all in redraft formats outside of tight end premium leagues, of course.
Yeah, I'm not really seeing Kyle Pitts go before the 10th round in the single-digit rounds and everything. But let me ask you this. For those that are going in that 9th, 10th round area, I got to ask you, man, because somebody who's definitely gained some steam, Tyler Warren, with this Colts situation, just another offense that I'm kind of outside of Jonathan Taylor, a little bit frozen on Armando. Where are you at with Tyler Warren, who's going right at the end of the 10th round, early 11th round lately?
Yeah, he's there. That's where Engram is going. That's where Andrews is going. You got some guys I feel a little bit better about going later than him. I'm not investing in him. I'm generally very hesitant to invest in rookie tight ends. I know we saw what Brock Bowers was capable of doing. Kyle Pitts had a nice season as a rookie, going over 1,000 receiving yards. Like we saw it with LaPorta as well. Like he had a big season as a rookie. So like there have been outlier seasons in recent years, but Russell and I talked about this on the tight end podcast there, the draft strategy podcast that we have over at Fantasy Guru. And they don't happen often, right? Like those big seasons don't happen often. And if you look at the numbers, I think it was, I don't quote me on this, but it's either 12 or 13 tight ends as rookies average 10 PPR points or more. Like that's not a lot. This is going back to like the 1960s. So it's not a lot, right? So I am a little bit hesitant. Can there be opportunities? Does he have the talent? Sure. But they're just other tight ends I feel better about in that same window that he's going in and even later in drafts.
Let's go all the way back up to the top of the board here, because the big question is we're chasing volume. If you're drafting a Trey McBride, you're not necessarily chasing those touchdowns. You're hoping once again for a third straight season that he eclipsed that 100 target area. I mean, for Trey McBride, you're seeing him being drafted in the 2nd and 3rd round. Brock Bowers, a solidified 2nd round pick. Is the juice worth the squeeze for both these guys, Armando, to go elite tight end and lock in one of these guys and then not have to worry about the position for the rest of your draft?
I'm not doing it personally. Look, if you go in that route, I'm not going to say that was a bad move. That was not smart. I personally just don't do it. I do not like the opportunity cost that the other position that's costing me, right? Like there's really good running backs in that range still left. There's still some very elite receivers there. And then I look at and I like Bowers a ton. I think he's going to have another great season. McBride the same. But I look at someone like George Kittle going a couple of rounds later, 2 rounds later, then Bowers at times. At times we've seen it kind of 3 rounds later, depending on where you're drafting. And I tell myself, this, in my opinion, is a tight end that can finish tight end 1 this season. And I'm getting him at a discount. I have him right there in that top tier as well on my board with the McBrides and the Bowers. Like that's where I have Kittle this year. And I'm getting a discount price. So if I'm going with elite tight end, that's kind of where I'm leaning towards, because I think Kittle's in for a big season so long as he stays healthy. Not that those two cannot replicate, but I feel like you're really drafting at absolute top price right now. And I don't like making that investment when you're looking at the opportunity cost, because again, there's so many great receivers. I'm on the clock right now. One of my best balls. It's a slow drop, but I'm on the clock and I'm literally in that 22, 23 range. And I have all of these decisions, Brock Bowers included. I'm not going there because I'm just looking at the running backs and the receivers there. I'm like, I can't pass up on that for a tight end position.
Armando, before we talk about more players, maybe now's a good time, because I know you put in our Discord that you were in a slow draft, that you're in slow drafts. As part of drafters, you and Jeff Band's taking on the night shift when it comes to that, being in best ball slow drafts. Once again, fantasyguru.com is partnering up with drafters. And as you can see right here, not only for the first timers, they get their deposit bonus, as we see around the industry, but a freaking reload bonus for those vets out there that want to get in more on the action right there, the elite reload and everything, Armando, because at the end of the day, how to get better is by drafting more, and especially with some of our subscribers getting to draft with you and the likes of Jeff Mans as well.
Yeah, that slow draft I posted. That's actually the one I'm in the on the clock right now. That's that precise one. I was pick number 3, so I'm right in my second round right now.
Do you want me to join those with you at all? I don't want to take away a spot from like a subscriber. But I saw that, I'm like, 8 spots left, and then I'm like, let's leave it for a subscriber then. But hey, man,
the more the merrier. The more the merrier.
Listen,
the more the merrier. There's a good chance I'm going to be close to 100 of these, so I'm going to be posting a lot of these links in there. So the more the merrier. I think it's fun. Tyler Beaker's in a couple with me. I believe Russell Clay might be in one as well. I think he's in one. So whenever I post a league, it's really for anyone. Like sometimes I've seen Jeff post, and I've joined those with Jeff as well when he's post those slow drafts, and it's just fun. Like everyone likes to draft with everyone. They kind of talk about the draft and stuff. So it's definitely a good time, fun time. So yeah, join whenever you want, Fancy. The more the merrier.
I'm going to jump into one of these drafts here, but go to drafters.com right now. Get your deposit bonus. Get your reload deposit bonus if you've used Drafters before, which, by the way, I think is an awesome business model, because how you keep people for these sites is you want to keep the whistle wet and everything. You want to keep them coming back. So why give these amazing promo codes to just first-time users? Care about the current clients, and that's what we're all about at Fantasy Guru and the drafters too. Now, going back to football, Armando, we've been talking about some of the elite tight ends. We've been talking about some of the more valued tight ends. Where does Sam LaPorta fit into all of this? Because now we have no more Ben Johnson. His targets dropped significantly from 2023. He was still getting into the end zone. Not a lot of tight ends that are getting into that 7 to 9 touchdown range from last year. But what are your thoughts on Sam LaPorta this year?
I'm totally fine with taking him where he's going. Like, I feel like he's a top 10 tight end. I think that, he took a step back from year 1 to year 2, but still was pretty productive for the most part, and I think we're going to see that again this year. I think there's going to be productivity. I think, yes, there might be some volatility as far as week-to-week production. Maybe he's not going to give you the double-digit touchdowns, but I think when you look at what he could do, you're talking about, 70 catches, 700-plus yards, and 6 to 9 touchdowns. I think is well within reach for him, and I think that's going to once again give you top 7, top 6 production at the position. So I'm totally fine with him. I have definitely invested in him. That's kind of like where I'm at tight ends. Like I feel like that's the range, Fancy, where I've been very aggressive. Like in that Sam LaPorta, TJ Hockenson, Evan Engram, Travis Kelce. If you notice, these are all guys going like kind of in that same window, maybe
that's
within a round,
8 round range in 12 team.
Correct. And that to me, like that's where you can get all of these tight ends for the most part have finished as top 3, right? And at their position, and they're at one point or another. So they have flashed that upside, and it's not fluky. It's not like, it was a 1-year wonder. No, like they've done it. Some have done it multiple times, and and some have done it in recent years. So like, I like that window a lot because I feel like there are some concerns. Kelce has the age. Hockenson didn't look as great, returning from an injury, but that's okay. You have LaPorta, who didn't, play to the level he played as a rookie. And then you have Evan Engram, who missed 8 games last season. He only played 9. So there's some red flags with these players, but there's also so much upside and so much, potential here. And I think that this is that range where I find myself investing at the position so much because I think there are a lot of underpriced players.
Any other, because you mentioned Evan Engram, but any other, because I think about last year, because you were saying how so far this year, their most invested player at tight end spot is Evan Engram. I remember last year in my leagues, I had a ton of Jake Ferguson, someone we were drafting at the end of the 9th round, in the 10th round. I had maybe 4 or 5 shares in my 8 leagues of Jake Ferguson, maybe 4 or 5 shares too much, Armando. But I got to ask you, in that 10th round range where we're seeing Evan Engram go, any other tight ends from that value sector that you like beyond Engram?
I mean, you said Jake Ferguson. I love Jake Ferguson. If you really are going to punt the position, I guess is the right way to say it. Like if you're going to wait into the double-digit rounds to take your first tight end, Jake Ferguson's that guy for me. Last year, Dak Prescott obviously was injured, missed a lot of games, and it was more than half the game. So you're talking about a tight end who didn't have his starting quarterback, right? The offense just didn't look great, and he had a down year. Are you surprised? No, I'm not. The year before was top 9, top 10 tight end in PPR scoring. If Prescott is healthy, and when you look at this offense, he's going to be a key focal point of it too, right? Like you have CeeDee Lamb, of course. They're going to have the long ball with Pickens. They have the backfield with Blue and Williams, but Ferguson's going to play a key role. He's been a key part of this. Like if you look at the target share from 2023 to 2024, it didn't really change, 17%. So the role itself was very similar. I think with Dak Prescott in the center, you're going to see a huge bounce back season from Ferguson. So someone who I think can finish as a top 12 tight end in PPR scoring. And again, if you're one of those that don't want to invest in the position until super late, he's that tight end that I'm targeting. I do think he's going to give you a solid floor and some pretty nice upside as well. So redraft, best ball, all of those, any format really, I'm totally fine with someone like Jake Ferguson going late in rounds. And then one more guy I want to mention. I do think there's going to be a little bit more volatility with him, but Hunter Henry is another one who I think is going to have a pretty solid season here this year. I'm expecting Drake May to take that step forward in year 2. Like the offense here, like the dynamic here, like obviously the changing of coaching and offensive coordinator. I think that's going to be helpful for both May and the supporting cast there. So for me, another one that I like is Hunter Henry there. But again, there's going to be week-to-week volatility when it comes to someone like Henry.
I was going to say, because I thought about Hunter Henry a little bit last year, and he had himself a solid year last year. And now, you've got Diggs there. I know that now, and that definitely is going to take some of that volume. And I'm guessing that's the volatility factor that you're debating with Hunter Henry, but he costs nothing at this point. You talk about somebody who I see myself streaming, and I see him being out there early on.
Yeah, and again, it's not necessarily only Diggs, but like I'll read out some of the numbers last year with Hunter Henry. Like week 1 was 3.8 fantasy points, week 2, 18.9. Then he went 3 straight weeks with 5.2 or fewer fantasy points. Then he comes back with 13, 17, 9, 12, then 2, 12, 9, 14, 6.5, 13.9. Like it's going to be a roller coaster ride. Over the course of the season, he'll give you what you need as a fantasy manager, right? Because of where you're taking him, I definitely think he'll outperform his current ADP. But it's going to come with that kind of roller coaster where there's going to be some fun weeks, but then there's going to be some of those weeks that's like, Henry, why? But hey, you know what? It costs you 0 on draft day.
That's exactly what we're doing here. We're talking tight ends, breaking down the entire position. Armando Marsal, an ace at doing so, and you can read his content at fantasyguru.com. Armando, I actually fielded some comments before about the roster coach live stream tonight. What do you think is going to be covered tonight?
So I won't be on it. It's going to be Russell, Clay, Tyler, Beaker, Rich Manetto. Pretty sure they're going to continue to discuss, they've been discussing some best ball dynasty. They've done a little bit of everything. So I'm sure they're going to be talking, they'll hit up on some more recent news. And I'm not sure if they're going to talk best ball, but I definitely know that they're going to be talking some fun stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. Please, Tyler Beaker is going to be in 2 different best ball drafts at the same time while the roster coach live is going on at fantasyguru.com. We know our customer right there. Give Armando a follow at Armando _Marsal, MARSAL on X. And also make sure you catch the Mind of Marsal podcast here on the Elite Plus Network. 2 episodes per week come out there for all of you to check out, with Armando breaks things down in a very deep way, getting right to bedrock. Armando, thank you so much for stopping by, man. Really appreciate you.
Yeah, man. Thank you so much for having me on, man. Always a blast talking football with you, man. I appreciate it.
Yes. To all of you out there, thank you so much for hanging out with me. Tomorrow, going to feature another position. Rich Miletto going to stop by and get you ready for your fantasy football drafts. Ray Flowers off the entire week. Make sure you catch Jeff Mans 2 p.m. Eastern on Sirius XM Fantasy Sports Radio, Channel 87 for Elite Sports. For Armando Marsal, I'm Justin Fensterman at Fensty Sports on X and Instagram, FENSTY Sports on both in our Discord at Fensty. And I'll see you back tomorrow noon Eastern, same time, same place, same channel, right here, Fantasy Sports Daily on the Elite Plus Network, powered by FantasyGuru.com.